Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to the Falcoholic Live's Falcons vs. Cowboys Week 10 post-game show. You guys don't need me to tell you how ugly that game was. That is one of the worst Falcons performances in recent memory. I was actually trying to go look up the last time they lost by 40 points. I can't remember. It's probably not that long ago, honestly, but it is. So somebody wants to do me a favor and figure out when the last time they lost by 40 points was. I would appreciate that. I have to do. We may have some other folks coming in, by the way, guys. We'll see. People are trying to drive home and stuff like that. So, if other folks can make it on, we'd be happy to get people in. Otherwise, it may just be me here to I know Adnan can't come on. I know a lot of people wanted to see Adnan. Adnan is actually on his way to the Hawks game, so he's not going to be able to make it on. Apologies for that. But I'm here at least, right? I hopefully I'm good enough for you guys. No, I'm just kidding. Shaquavius Scott says last time they lost this badly versus Kansas City 2004, the Falcons lost 56-10. Okay. Yeah. That sounds about right. So it's been a while since they were down so bad. Ray, unfortunately I had to keep it together, for the show's sake. So I could only get a few in. The rest of that comes afterwards. But thank you guys for sticking it out, hanging out with us. George Costanza with the $5 says, this tip is for all of you guys. I'm showing my appreciation for you guys showing up on game day because the Falcons surely they can't be serious. I'm very serious. I'm going to keep calling them Shirley. Love the airplane ref, George. But yeah, I mean, I like Anwar Tahir's comment. We lost by a lot. Yeah, that's a good place to start. I mean, they obviously lost by a lot. 43-3. I remember when they decided to go for the touchdown instead of kicking the field goal. And I was like totally fine with it. I was like, I think if you wanted to critique the fact they were going for it on like 4th and 7 versus like kicking a 49-yard field goal or whatever it was, I think that's fair. Like 4th and 7 is pretty hard to make. But I think Arthur Smith knew and Dean Pease knew, like, we're not stopping this offense. Like, we're going to have to keep pace. That's the only chance we have. And like, I think that was clearly the correct instinct there. The problem was the offense didn't get it. And then they proceeded to just go in the tank the entire game after that. They didn't get one first down, I think, until the end of the game. Like one first down, like a third down conversion. They may have gotten none, actually. I can't remember if the backups actually got one. But, I mean, every single phase turned in their worst performance of the season. The special teams had the punt blocked for a touchdown. The punt coverage was bad. And then the defense obviously was awful. I can't believe the game plan was like, let's put CeeDee Lamb on Avery Williams and, we'll just hope for the best there. I mean, that was the game plan. Maybe they didn't have a choice, but that was not by, that was not going to do anything. That wasn't going to work. And then on offense, they just literally they folded. Like they threw in the towel after I think the second 3 and out. I mean, it looked like the first 2 drives that this was going to be a shootout, that they had a chance to sort of keep it interesting at least. They did not have the juice to keep it interesting. They didn't have the juice to keep it interesting past the first quarter. They got absolutely dusted, and the offense went into the tank and was awful after the first 2 drives. I mean, they were bad the entire game after those 2 drives, and there was actual talk of like we should bench like the starters at halftime because they're down 33 points. The highest points they've scored in the season was 30, so they were not going to come back. I mean, that's obvious, but I mean, it's just a really bad game. I don't really know what really to say about it. I mean, every phase failed. Every position group looked terrible. They took Cordarrelle Patterson out of the game probably to, I guess, protect him. But because it wasn't reported he had an injury when he had his ankle taped at one point. But, they sort of gave up after the second quarter. I mean, I think they knew they were done. And it's pretty embarrassing to be out of a game at halftime. But I mean, they were legitimately out. Like there was no chance of coming back from that 33-point deficit. So it's really bad to have this happen to any coach. So I mean, Arthur Smith is going to have a lot of questions, and Dean Pease is going to not. Dean Pease has been very upset when people have called his defense bad. I mean, he needs to start answering questions because his defense is bad. I mean, it's awful. There was no chance. The game plan wasn't good to begin with. There was not really any chance for Avery Williams on a player like CeeDee Lamb, who's a lot bigger than him, first of all, and also just a total mismatch. Like you can't just throw him out to die like that. It's rough, man. It's really nothing good coming out of this post-game show. You're right, TC. There's not really anything, that we could take from this game in a positive light. All four phases were bad. Like all three phases, all four phases, whatever, all bad. Offense embarrassing. Defense embarrassing. Special teams embarrassing. Yeah, Jason, I just totally disagree with you, man. I'll read out your comment because it deserves to be read. I mean, you said the game is over. Jason Gaines, by the way, with the $2. Thank you, Jason. He says the game was over after Arthur Smith decided to go for it on 4th and 7 at the Dallas 32. You kicked the 49-yard field goal. You only be down by one. Stupid decision to go for it. It wouldn't have mattered if they kicked that field goal. If they get that field goal, Dallas goes right down the field and scores. And being like what would it matter if they were losing this game, 6 to something? It doesn't matter. They had to score touchdowns. They couldn't do it. So that's. I mean, I don't think that. I mean, if you believe in like a momentum, which I don't really believe in, then I guess that's like your big thing. It's like, oh well, since you didn't get points there, your team went in the tank. And if your team mentally gets destroyed because you didn't get a first down on a 4th and 7, I mean that's a whole other issue. This is an NFL team. These guys have given up 18-point leads and come back and won games. So I don't think this was a mental error. I think this was we just got our pants pulled down to our ankles and got our butt slapped sort of thing. Forgive my creative analogy there, but like they just, I mean, they got slapped. Like they were not prepared. They were completely outclassed. I mean, the Cowboys just looked like they wanted it more. That's really the crux of it to me. Even like Jordan Lewis, like who I think has been relatively like mediocre for them, just played out of his mind. I mean, I think he had 4 pass breakups in the first quarter, and it's they played their best game of the year. The Falcons played their worst game of the year, and that's what it looks like because the Falcons' worst game is as bad as any team in the league. I mean, it's as bad as the Texans. Yeah, and Vlad, I think I think you have a point there. Like, we all thought that the Falcons maybe could contest the game if they could keep up on offense, and they couldn't. Like, they didn't even look functional on offense. So that's why this game got out of hand. The offense was always going to have to be the one to win it. The defense should have never been counted on to be, a difference maker in this game. And the Falcons, got behind early and just didn't ever punch back. They never ever punched back. They didn't do anything after getting down. And it's embarrassing. It's an indictment of the coaching staff. I mean, I think the play calling after the Falcons sort of got down 14-3. We had a run that was a tackle for loss. Then we had another run after the tackle for loss on 2nd and 13. And then, Matt Ryan was sacked, I think, on 3rd down. So, like, we can't keep doing this. We can't keep saying, like, we're a run-heavy team. We're going to run on 2nd and 10. We're going to run on 2nd and 13. Like, yes, you can run sometimes in those situations, but not in that situation. Like, if you want to tell me that it's logical to run on 2nd and 13 down 2 scores, just to sort of establish that you might run, like, no, like, there's no more pretenses. Like, you're down 2 scores in the first quarter. It's time to throw the ball. Like, you're going to throw the ball. They know you're going to throw the ball. Just throw the ball. This team was lighting up the Cowboys secondary and then went into the tank and never got out. They went into the shell, like a turtle hiding. Like they were roasting them with these deep throws, and then nothing. Like it was bad, man, real bad. So, I mean, they have the talent to beat guys deep and to get these big plays, but I think where we're seeing that they don't have the talent is in when they need to sort of be more slow about it, when they need guys to win one-on-ones, when they just sort of need to move the chains and teams are taking away the deep throws, the big throws with a lot of cover two. They don't have the guys to win one-on-one matchups. I mean, they have Pitts and they have Patterson, and that's it. And teams are going to be doubling Pitts. They're probably going to be rotating as much to help cover Patterson as they can. So somebody else has to do something, and there's not another wide receiver on this team that's active right now that can really make them pay for this sort of decision. Like, Dwight, I'm actually hoarse because I have not been taking enough to drink. I'm not actually that upset about it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, don't get too emotionally invested at this point. It's tough to do this. You're by yourself, when there's so much negative to talk about, because it's just like a constant stream of like, well, it was this, and then it was this, and then it was this. Um, it's just it's rough to watch, but they just don't have the talent. They don't have the depth anywhere. So like, there's no Ridley, and none of their other receivers can do anything. Um, they lose just a handful of players on defense, and they're awful. Isaiah Oliver seemed to be like the slot guy, and without him, they just don't have anything. Yeah, I mean, people mentioned Hurst. I think Hurst did get hurt late in this game, but Hurst has been invisible, total non-factor for a guy you sent a second-round pick for. And that's not this regime's fault, obviously, but you have to be disappointed. I think a lot of people were hopeful that we were going to see this team really have these effective 12 personnel packages with two tight ends, and we thought it would be Hayden Hurst benefiting from another dynamic threat like Kyle Pitts out there and doing this, 12 personnel stuff. But it's Hayden Hurst is not doing anything. Hayden Hurst is barely a part of this offense. I mean, he catches a few passes here and there, but he's certainly not, that sort of threat. Like, he's not threat. He's not a threat to do anything out there. And Dylan Spires is getting to exactly what I was about to say, which is that Lee Smith has been better, more reliable, and a much, much better, more impactful blocker. So, I don't really think that win is planned. The offensive line got pantsed in this one. Jalen Mayfield had one of his worst games. It's just quite bad out there right now. There's just not. I don't really think there's much of an explanation for it. I think that the whole team just sort of mailed it in. I don't know what exactly went wrong from a coaching standpoint, but the offense just went into a shell after they went 3 and out, or after they didn't get that fourth down. They just went into a conservative shell, and that play calling is absolutely on Arthur Smith. But it's just when these guys have an off day, they're really bad. They're really bad when they have an off day on offense. They can't do anything. Every receiver gets the drops. The offensive line can't pass protect, can't run block. Matt Ryan honestly was playing fine, but his receivers couldn't give him anything. Constant drops. We had a guy bobble a catch straight into an interception. We had another, he's had other passes tipped into interceptions. It's just and Matt Tate brings up a good point about, the draft, and I think we all like Jalen Mayfield to work out, and there's still a lot of time for him to do so. But if he doesn't get any better before the end of the season, I think it's where you might start seeing discussions about, are they going to draft another player to solve guard? They drafted 2 players theoretically to sort of try to address guard, and Drew Dahlman and Jalen Mayfield. And Mayfield is starting, so that means they must not think Dahlman's better. But if Mayfield doesn't get much better, then they're going to be looking for another player there, because the offensive line being right is an absolute necessity for Arthur Smith's offense. It's a necessity for Matt Ryan too. He does not he's a great quarterback when he's protected, and when he's not and has to run all over the field, and that's just not, it's not a recipe for success for him, or really for most quarterbacks. So it's offensive line is definitely a spot where it's like I think they have been able to sort of scheme it up to make it look better than it is. But without Lee Smith out there chipping and blocking, none of their other tight ends are good blockers. So there's no help there. McGarry, definitely had his struggles as well. It was just a total choke job by the entire team. I guess it's hard to choke when you're an 8-point underdog, but I mentioned on Wednesday I thought it was disrespectful that the Falcons were an 8-point underdog. That was the same line that the Steelers were favored over the Lions, and that was before, I think, the Big Ben news and all that. So it's just that seems like, if anything, that was too generous. This team was not capable of even keeping the game close. So I think we could spend a lot of time critiquing the defense, but the defense was totally outclassed. I think if you wanted to argue that the Cowboys were the most talented offense in the NFL in terms of their entire package, I think you'd have a strong argument. I think that their receivers, they have 3 great receivers that could probably all be at least wide receiver 2s or better. Cooper and Lamb are both sort of wide receiver 1 talents. I think Gallup is wide receiver 2 talent. So, all of those guys are great. The running backs obviously are really good. Zeke and Pollard are awesome. The offensive line, they were missing their left tackle. But the Falcons don't have the personnel to take advantage of that. Their pass rush is the worst in the league. So, it's just rough. It's rough out there. Not really too much to say. Corey Carter with the $1. Corey says, coaching has to help the team. Can't call an obvious passing play on 4th and 7. O-line got pushed back immediately into Ryan, and the whole play was changed. Smith has to do a better job taking care of this team. Yeah, Corey, I think you should sort of always make something, at least have the threat of the run. But I think on 4th and 7, everyone knows you're passing, because the chances of getting a successful 7-yard run on 4th down in that scenario are very, very low. So, everyone's going to know it's a pass, but I agree. I think you should sort of, I agree with this on any thing with 3 yards to go or less. I don't ever agree with going empty in that situation, for example, just because, I'd like to see at least the threat of a running back getting the ball. But yeah, there's a lot of room here to grow. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. And it's, just a really bad day. It's kind of everything that could go wrong did go wrong. I wouldn't let this really seriously change your outlook on the team. These sorts of stinkers are going to happen. Honestly, the Cowboys were down almost 30 points, I think, to the Broncos last week. And they got some garbage time points to make that look more respectable. But this very same Cowboys team, who's probably, their division winner and possible, a deep playoff contender, got pantsed last week, came back and had a great game. So it's, these sorts of bad games happen. These letdowns happen. It's happened to a lot of teams. It happened to the Cowboys, like I said, last week. So, if you're the Falcons, you have to just move on from this. If you're a Falcons fan, you have to move on from it. Don't linger on it. It's just a regular season game. I wouldn't, waste your time getting broken up over it or anything like that. It was very unfun to watch, which is always lame because I like to enjoy, watching fun football games, good football games. And this obviously wouldn't qualify as that, but it's it's a bad game. This is one of those, what do they say, the bury the ball game. So that's what I would do if I were you guys. The Falcons, have clear weaknesses. If you can rush and put pressure on Matt Ryan, then he's going to have a bad game. And if you can match up with the Falcons defense in a positive way, like if you're at least a middling offense or better, you can move the ball against this defense. So that's, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Hold on one second, guys. So yeah, let me read from Kevin Wood the second, excuse me. Thank you, man, for the $2. He says, get Fabian off this team, get someone from the practice squad, pick up anyone on the market now. No way they could be worse than him. I mean, I think I would be more, critiquing of Avery Williams probably than of Fabian Moreau. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like this personnel that the Falcons have, like Moreau probably should be like the third cornerback. Like a backup guy on the outside, but he has to be the Falcons starter and he has to cover. And when you go up against a team as good as Dallas, who have 2 wide receiver 1s and then a wide receiver 2, like Moreau's going to have a hard time covering wide receiver 1s successfully. Like he's going to have a hard time on Cooper. He's going to have a hard time if he's matched up against someone like CeeDee Lamb. And, honestly, I have more critique for Avery Williams. Not even that like I blame Avery Williams so much. It's more like you can't leave Avery Williams on CeeDee Lamb like singled up all the time. Like that's not going to work. Like you're going to have to figure something else out. If that's your plan going in, that's not going to happen. I don't necessarily blame Avery Williams for it. I don't think it's his fault. I blame the coaching staff for forcing that to happen. All right, got Corey Carter with the $1. Thank you, Corey. He says Atlanta is not a better team than Dallas, so it means that the emphasis has to be on the game plan and the in-game adjustments. I want to support Coach Smith, but he doesn't have the equity to have these multiple lackluster efforts like we have seen. Yeah, Corey, I agree. I mean, he's not going to get the equity until this team gets to a point where they're winning games consistently. And I think they're about a 500 team this year. And this type of performance is well within that sort of scope, as crappy as it is to sort of watch. But I think as a rookie head coach, it's tough. He got smacked in the mouth today. I don't think he responded well to getting down big. I'm hoping that he's a coach that's going to take this game, seriously and be like, okay, I went conservative after we got down. Why did I do that? I can't do that again. I know someone mentioned, Eric Harris starting. Jalen Hawkins was out with an injury. It came out during the game that he suffered an ankle injury and was declared out, so that's not good. I can't tell you what the hell's going on with Richie Grant. It seems like Dean Pease has a problem with him because he barely plays, and this game he did a little bit, which is nice. But I think at this point, you're a 500 team. It's time to just get your second round pick on the field. Like he needs to take his lumps. He needs to get his experience. Like it's time to see that. Like, and Nico brings up a good point. Like Eric Harris, I think in terms of his coverage and his run support and all that, has been like solid. He's been like a serviceable starter mostly. But like he can't catch, which is why he's playing safety, strong safety usually in his career. We know Richie Grant can catch turnovers. That's what he did at UCF really well. I think he had like 7 interceptions or more. I'm gonna look it up. But and you spend a second round pick on the guy, you need to just get him out there at this point. Like, I hope these guys weren't so obsessed with like, oh, maybe we have a shot at the playoffs. Let's just like maximize it. Like, no, please don't. Like, just try to win games, sure, but you need to play your young guys. You need to get Richie Grant out there, and see what he can do for you. You need to know if he can be your starting safety next year. Like, you need to know. Because if he can't, for whatever reason, then you need to draft another safety because we can't just go out there again with Eric Harris and Deron Harmon as your starting safeties and be like, this is fine. It's just not going to work. Like that's not a good idea. Not a good idea at all. So we need to see Richie Grant over the last half of the season, and we need to know if he can be a starter for us next year or if we need something else. And for the record, Richie Grant had 10 interceptions at UCF. He had 6 in one season back in 2018. So this is a player that we need to get back there, if only just for turnovers. If only just for turnovers at that point. Dwight the second, Dwight the second will say, thanks, Dwight, with the $3. Says, have a beer on me. Thank you, Dwight. I will. Remember that time I said blow it up, Pepperidge Farm reminders. Yeah, I mean, it just really it varies, right? Like I guess we'll have a chance to reevaluate their first year at the end of the season, but I think during the preseason, for those of you that were following along with us then, we sort of looked at this roster construction and we're like, this, are they serious with this? Like, is this, like, they say they want to compete, but they didn't really spend the resources to do so, and the depth is really thin, and like, this is, we're really depending on a lot of these guys sort of playing better than they ever have if this is going to turn out. So it's becoming, apparent that, like, I think for the most part, Dean Pease has squeezed more out of this defense than has been, like, actually there. Like, I think, against the Saints last week, we saw them sort of get it together. We've seen them have some good games, but in terms of, like, talent, the defense is not there. Like, it's not even close. So a good offense with a good offense with a good offensive coordinator like Kellen Moore is going to pick you apart. He's going to blast your weak points on defense. Because he's got a quarterback that can do it, and he's got the skill position players that can do it too. And that's what it's going to look like until this talent gets to a better point. So if you want to win with this defense, your offense has to be good. They were awful today, so that's why they got blown out. But, like, it's also just really difficult for an offense to keep pace with Dallas. Like, Dallas, I think, was the third highest scoring offense going into this game, but in a lot of other categories, including yardage and yards per play, they were the best. So I do think the Dallas offense has at least been the most consistent offense in the league, and other than last week, that was like their one bad game. So I just don't, this was a perfect storm for the Falcons. They were really, really bad on defense. They have the bad talent, and the Cowboys were sort of built perfectly to take advantage, and they did. So, props to their coaching staff for taking care of it and doing the thing. But it's really rough to watch. So I don't blame people for turning it off. I mean, I didn't turn it off, but I had it on in the background while I was playing some Hades. I don't know if you guys have played that game. It's a pretty good game. Good game to get your anger out. You get to smash some stuff. We got Corey Cutter again with the $1. Thank you, Corey. He says, after that fourth down call, it then turned into a Dallas Cowboys love fest. Didn't watch the second half. It was a mistake to watch the second quarter, but Atlanta got the ball in the second half. I wanted to see if we could get back-to-back scores. Yeah, I mean, I would like look over at the screen sometimes and be like, oh, maybe they can do a scoring drive. Maybe we can see someone get a touchdown. That might be fun. No, there was none of that. It was all bad after the first quarter. So it's rough, man. Oh yeah, no, Dylan, don't play Overwatch now. Yeah, I mean, I tried to get into that game, but I get very frustrated with that. So yeah, I did not do that. So yeah, so don't I wouldn't encourage that while the Falcons are sucking. It's like a one or the other sort of thing. We also have one more from Corey. He says, who are the building blocks for this team in the future so far? Right now, I have Pitts, Ogundiji, Grant, and Mayfield. The McCary experience needs to end when his contract does. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I agree with the ones that you listed there. I do think Avery Williams is a player that we can sort of pencil in. I think that Avery Williams shouldn't be the starting nickel, but I think as like a depth guy, I think it's fine. Hold on one second, guys. So yeah, Grant I think should be a block as well. I think that they have I think that they have other pieces that are worthwhile. Like obviously Chris Lindstrom is a big one. I think Jake Matthews is still going to give you quality left tackle play for at least a few more years, but eventually you're going to have to start looking there. I think Matt Hennessy has been good enough that I think you're not necessarily trying to draft a center next year. If a great one falls in your lap, I don't think you say no, but I think Hennessy has been stronger of the two rookies. And then at right tackle, it's a big question mark. Does Caleb McGarry's had his ups and downs this year? I thought he had a couple strong games, had a bad game, against the Panthers, had a really bad game this week. So it's, the offensive line is a big question mark. I think Patterson is a guy that you want to keep around. And I think in terms of the other receivers, I wouldn't mind bringing back Zaccheaus and Tajay Sharp, but they need to be complementary guys, not your starting wide receivers. That's who they are. I think Zaccheaus is probably a wide receiver 4, and Tajay Sharp is your wide receiver 5, and you rotate those guys in, and I think they can give you solid production. But right now, Zaccheaus and Sharp are wide receiver 1 and 2. Russell Gage is in there too, but Russell Gage has just been having a really rough season. He did have a nice bounce back game last week against the Saints, but as a whole, I just don't think the slot receiver, as a wide receiver, especially is a player that Arthur Smith really utilizes well. He didn't really utilize it well in Tennessee. I think he'd had a lot more success in the slot with tight ends, with putting guys like A.J. Brown there from time to time. And I think it's clear, Arthur Smith has a type. He likes yards after catch guys, and he likes big guys. And right now, the Falcons, I think you could say Sharp is kind of in between. He's not huge, but he's got good hands, so he's kind of a bigger guy. Kyle Pitts is perfect for him because Kyle Pitts is massive and a yards after catch guy. So Pitts is going to be a perfect long-term fit, and, we're going to continue to see him grow. But outside of that, they don't really have any size at all outside of, they have Patterson, which is nice. But again, Patterson's sort of your ace in the hole. Patterson should be your chess piece guy, not your we're going to run the entire offense through this guy. And to Patterson's credit, I think he's been doing about as well as anyone can. But yeah, it's rough out there on the offensive talent side. They just desperately need another impact receiver. I think they either, if they bring Ridley back or they don't trade him or whatever, they still need to draft a receiver. If they do trade Ridley, they need to sign someone too. Use Ridley's money to sign another receiver. Because that's how bad they need it. The offense has to be the engine of this team. It's going to take a 3-year rebuild to get the defense to a legitimately good place. So we're going to have to rely on the offense. And it doesn't help the defense if we have to spend a premium pick on a receiver, but I think that they have to spend a second round pick on a receiver at this point. They just have to. And they might need to, if Ridley's not the fit that Arthur Smith wants, then they need to trade Ridley and they need to sign somebody too. The receiver free agent class is looking pretty good. I think there's a lot of guys out there they could consider bringing in. We'll obviously talk about that more this offseason. We'll see who gets re-signed, that sort of thing. But, they have to have more there at that position. They absolutely have to. Yeah, Corey, I'm not going to I'm not going to say draft a receiver in the first at this point, but I think that second round is really perfect. That early second round where they'll probably be picking is sort of a perfect place to pick a receiver. I think there'll be some really good ones left. So we'll see what that looks like. I think they really do need to go defense in the first, but we'll see what happens. I think I think they'll be in a great position to draft a defensive lineman, an edge rusher. With that first pick, I think they'll want to do that if at all possible. I think a linebacker is probably coming too, maybe sooner than folks realize, especially if they trade Dion. So they're they need to invest in the defense. They need to make a couple of key additions on offense, but I think in terms of like most of the investment still needs to go to defense. But again, like I don't think the Falcons will probably be picking around 15-ish. I don't think they're bad enough to end up in the top 10. This is a team like despite this game and despite some stinkers, they also randomly turn it on and just take it to teams. So I think this team again is going to be around 500. They're going to be spicy in some games. They're going to get blown out sometimes, and they're going to, take it to some teams hopefully as well. We'll see. So, I think right around pick 15, they're going to have a choice, of some defensive linemen there. They're going to have some good options. And, I think if it's me, I'm loading up on draft picks otherwise. Like, I think Deion Jones is probably too expensive to keep, in my opinion. Yeah, Matthew, I see your message, by the way, man. I will get to that in just a second. No, I think it's your first time tipping. Yeah, so I did see it. Don't worry about that. Yeah, I just I think for me, I'm gonna go ahead and I think I'm gonna go ahead and make some trades, pick up some extra day 2 picks, and try to just reload. And hopefully Matt Ryan will still be good at the end of that rebuild, but we'll see. That's the gamble they took by taking Kyle Pitts instead of a quarterback. And like we're not in any position to judge that. It's probably going to be a while before we can have a real like accurate assessment, and it may always be that we don't really know which one's better. But we will see. And like again, maybe Matt, we get close but not quite there with Matt. But Kyle Pitts can be still a big asset. So we'll see. And yeah, I do think they're going to extend Ryan this year. I think he's played well enough that you extend him. So we got Matthew Turner with his first tip, $1. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that, man. He says, do you think Arthur Smith will draft as well as Dan Quinn did? Also love the content. Keep it up. I think that the first draft class has been encouraging. Obviously Kyle Pitts is sort of a layup, so you don't want to give them too much credit for that. But the big kicker of this draft class is going to be Richie Grant, and we need to start seeing that. I think people are starting to get restless on that. So yeah, I think really this draft class is going to sort of hinge on Richie Grant and what he turns into. So I think that we're still waiting to see on that. But like I like what we've seen from Ogundeji. I think he's going to be a serviceable rotational guy. Avery Williams, for as much as he can't cover CeeDee Lamb, has been a relatively solid nickel slot corner when called upon. I think he's got upside on punt returns too. I think there are some, Jalen Mayfield has been okay at times. He's always been more of a project. So, we're going to have to wait and see on that one too. Drew Dahlman, haven't seen much of either. So this is much more of a future focused draft class. And I think a lot of us sort of thought based on, where we sort of saw this team. But let's see how these guys develop, because that's going to start to tell the story of this. It's going to start to tell the story of this draft class and this, how these guys are drafting. But I think, obviously it helps if you hit on draft picks. It also would help if you get more of them. So if they get a couple more seconds or whatever from making some trades, that'll go a long way. If they end up with 3 seconds and a third and 2/3, or 4 seconds and a third, you can add a lot of talent with those sort of picks. Now you have to hit on those players. You can't just get the picks. But I think I like this scouting staff. I like the idea behind a lot of these picks, but we'll see. They have to actually connect on them. All right, guys. Well, that's about all I can say about this game. I appreciate everyone for hanging out today. All like 250, 60, 70 of you that were here. This is a tough game to watch, tough game to talk about, but it's easier when you've got friendly fans around and we can all commiserate together and talk about this terrible ass team, which hopefully will be less terrible next week against the Patriots. But if we're being honest, not great. Not really very hopeful against the Patriots next week, if we're going to be completely honest there. I know we have one more tip from Corey. I'll get to that in just 1 second. But yeah, guys, please do check out the show on Wednesday. We have another show on Wednesday nights at 8:10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can also check out our Patreon page if you're interested in supporting the show. You can get access to some exclusive perks like podcast episodes of this post-game show. Only place to get them right now. You can also get high-quality ad-free versions of the Wednesday show in podcast format as well. Also have our Q&A session exclusively for patrons, which is what just came out a couple days ago. Maybe some of you guys saw that. You can also check out the community Discord server where you can, commiserate with your fellow Falcons fans in sadness. And also Patreon Day only fans tomorrow. No, we're not going that far. Not yet. Check out the Discord server. The link is in the show description. You can follow me, Kevin Knight, at Falcoholic Kevin. You can follow the show at Falcoholic Live. Corey Carter with the $1 before we sign off here. He says, Pitts fought for extra yards early on in the game in 3 to 4 years when he's a veteran. I think he's could be a real reason for a culture change if there is one, but they may have to re-sign him as a wide receiver. So happy we have Pitts here. It was down to him or Sewell for me. Yeah, both those guys having encouraging early starts to their careers for sure. And then but the good news is, folks, we got a Thursday night game coming up, so we don't even have to dwell on this game. It's straight into the next one. So hopefully that game will be less depressing because we'll have to talk about that one even longer. But yeah, guys, appreciate everyone for hanging out. I will see you guys again on Wednesday at 8:10 p.m. Eastern, where we'll talk about this game with some other guests because I've talked about it as much as I can. So have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday. Have a good one, folks.